Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're still watching Breakfast Show, and now we have over the phone Dr. Monica Williams. She's an international relations expert, and also she is a political science researcher. Good morning, Dr. Williams.
Good morning.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us today in Nile TV International. I would like to start first by asking you, how do you assess the latest developments concerning the deal that America and Iran now are proposing?
The latest political and military indicators regarding the Iranian and American deal has entered a phase better described as a battle of leverage, yes, rather than one of direct military resolution.
Yes.
Each side tried to attempt to improve its negotiating position ahead of any potential agreement, amid a growing mutual realization that the cost of a full-scale war has become too high for all parties, of course, whether U.S. or Iran, including even the regional allies and in Gulf countries and broader Middle East. In this context, the Strait of Hormuz has emerged now as Iran's most influential bargaining part, and Iran no longer views the Strait military as a maritime corridor, but also strategic tool through which it can reshape the regional balance of power. Yes. Repeated Iranian political discourse about regulating passes and imposed transit fees and requiring coordination with the Revolutionary Guard reflect an attempt to transform that geographical influence into a permanent political and legal reality.
Yeah.
Of course, this point explains the strategic importance of the Qasem and the Khark Islands in the Iran calculation. The first one provides maritime depth and logistical control, and on the other side, the Khark second represent the core of Iran oil export infrastructure. On the other side, current developments for the United States has already made relative concessions compared to, of course, for the first draft of the ongoing deal. The American administration now gradually moved away from insist on full control over Iran's highly uranium stockpile, and it's now focused more on the mechanism of monitoring, freezing, and long-term restriction rather than complete displacement. And of course, on the other side, ongoing discussion regarding the release of part of Iran frozen assets, even if limited to approximately 25%, it represents, of course, a significant shift in United States or Donald Trump position, as the United States has previously rejected any major financial risk before a comprehensive final agreement.
Dr. Williams, what are the main reasons behind the acceptance of both sides to continue the negotiations rather than resuming the war?
Of course, there is a lot of dynamic which help explain the visible fluctuations in the position of, for instance, American President Donald Trump. He repeated three military action, postponed strikes at the last moment, and then returned to speaking about the window for diplomacy. This behavior is not only tied to Trump's personal negotiating style, but also the increasing complicated domestic American context. The Iranian confrontation is gradually becoming an economic and political burden on U.S. administration, particularly with raising fuel prices, inflation rates, and fears of renewed economic slowdown. Estimated suggest, for instance, that American consumer fuel costs since the beginning of this war, while gasoline prices have reached historically elevated levels across the United States. So economic pressure come at politically sensitive moment ahead of the, of course, mid-term election, and where Republicans fear losing control of the House of Representatives to Democrats. Although, of course, Trump continued to maintain strong influence over the Republican Party, and internal divisions are becoming increasingly, especially among parties opposing the continue of this conflict or this war. So Trump needs to make a rapid political achievement rather than engage in a prolonged war that would drain the American economy and negatively, of course, affect voters already highly sensitive to inflation and
and it's
power
already
concern.
affecting, Dr. Williams, we want to talk more about Israel's stance, and we have a big question mark here for Israel insisting on resuming the war despite the international efforts to contain it and shift to the peace deal.
Of course, now Israel has different position in this regard, and they want and they try to convince Donald Trump to complete the war, and of course, it appears capital and Tel Aviv and the Netanyahu specifically view any potential agreement that falls short of displaying Iran's strategic capabilities as a direct threat to its long-term security doctrine. And of course, for the Israeli perspective, the current diplomatic momentum risks reproduce what considers the core weakness of previous agreement with Iran, limiting escalation temporarily without eliminating Iran nuclear infrastructure, missile capabilities, of course, and the most important, or one of the most important one, is the regional influence network. And of course, if we try to read or this explain the escalation in the Israeli discourse during recent weeks, Israeli political and security circles repeatedly emphasize that any agreement must include strict limitation,
Dr. Williams, sorry for interrupting you, but I want to ask you a question before we go about the American President Donald Trump when he visited China. Afterwards, he announced a suspension of arms deal to Taiwan. We want to know why, and tell us more about this.
Of course, he tried to balance gain bargaining ground with China, which is, of course, have a lot of influential role in Iran, or how to convince Iran to open Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz, we have to attempt that it's a very important and high priority now for the United States agenda.
Dr. Williams, many said that Trump has asked China to convince Iran to accept the recent peace proposal, and that this is related to suspending the arms deal to Taiwan. So if you would like to elaborate more on this.
Of course, it's part of the bargaining, but of course, on the other side, we have to attempt that China always have a cautionary situation. It's an effort to secure China's support for a proposed agreement and to encourage Iran cooperation, and to try to, of course, encourage China cooperation in pressure Iran towards accepting the broader negotiating framework. But on the other side, there is a lot of calculation regarding the, for instance, China, which is, of course, China for political discourse, which is said highly that this, Taiwan is a red line for China. And on the other side, after 4 years, there is a visit between Putin, which is, of course, Russian President and China tried to settle or tried to make a lot of discussion regarding Iran and, of course, regarding some of the U.S. movements, especially in Cuba, for instance. So there is a lot of diplomatic momentum in the last 2 weeks.
Well, Dr. Monica Williams, International Relations Expert, thank you very much, Dr. Monica, for talking to us today in the Breakfast Show. And